Hello everybody, and welcome back to What Remains of Edith Finch. A couple things before we get started here. One, as I keep going back through and editing my videos on YouTube, I keep noticing that sometimes the video will glitch, and it'll just kind of jump forward, and I don't know what causes that other than maybe just my bad internet, because unfortunately where I live, we only have this option called Mediacom. If we want actual, cable connected internet, the fiber optic connection. Yeah. Otherwise, we have to go satellite, and satellite's not very good either. So, we only have the one fiber optic option in this thing called Mediacom. But, when I moved back to Indiana, at the beginning of the year, I'm going to hopefully be able to have Comcast again, or AT&T or something that's, better than Mediacom. And, hopefully it won't be so bad. The other thing is, weirdly enough, the VOD for the first part of this game, the VOD on Twitch had muted audio because of the Halloween theme that played during the barber section, but it wasn't claimed on YouTube, weirdly enough. I mean, I left that part in, and it wasn't claimed. So, I don't know. It was kind of weird. Anyway. Let's just go ahead and keep going with the story of this. This very cursed family, where everybody just kind of up and dies.
After
It's
Sam
very
died,
sad.
my mom and Edie got really close. They'd both lost a lot.
Oh no. This is the one I remember the most because it's one of the saddest ones.
Dear Kay, do you remember the way Gregory used to laugh when he thought he was alone? Like something funny was happening, but only he could see it. I think he saw things the rest of us don't.
I get to the little frog. I got the froggy friend. And now I am the frog.
Time over, Gregory. It's time to... Hold on, sweetie. Hello? Sam, I told you I don't want to talk right now.
Ooh, bubbles.
What his world was like.
No, come back here, duckies. It's hard to tell with the depth perception. There we go. There we go.
He reminded me so much of Calvin.
Come on, get. There we go.
Lost in his imagination.
Got the big old whale.
I know how silly it sounds. I'm worried about a baby being too happy. But I could feel him slipping away.
Sorry about that, Gregory.
I know you did everything you could. Maybe if I hadn't called that night.
Damn it. Hold on, I don't want to...
I wish he could have told us about the world he saw. There's so much I don't understand about Gregory, about everything.
I am the frog.
But I know what happened wasn't your fault. Good luck, Kay. Love, Sam.
And apparently she doesn't even have anything to say about that, looks like. It's at the moment. But yeah, that's just one of the saddest ones, because, I mean, the kid was only, like, not even a year old. Maybe a year old.
Imagine my mom ever writing poetry, and yet...
And yet, apparently, she wrote a poem for Gus. I think the mom was Dawn, which is why the name was living on the bed.
Who always said the wedding was a bad idea. Our father never hit us kids, at least not very hard, before the day my brother said with teenage disregard that he'd be dead before he'd see a wedding in our yard.
Woohoo!
My father made him come, of course, but Gus stood far apart, just flew his kite and bottled up the storm inside his heart. I tried to talk him out of it, but though he'd never met her, we don't need a stepmom, were the words that
I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride.
Okay, so... what am I doing now? Oh, there we go.
When the time for photos
Up
came,
the
Dad
totem
ordered
pole.
him to come here. But Gus declined, and as a sign held up his middle finger. The wind picked up, and panicked geese appeared and quickly went. But all the humans did that day was go inside the tent.
I'm trying to get back this way then. So the tent was over here. No? Alright. Oh, it's down here. Whoa.
The rain came down in buckets then, but no one seemed afraid that nature might destroy the tent our dad had crudely made.
Oop, down here.
The thunder sounded much too close and full of angry power. But all my father said to this was, "Make the music louder." I wish that I could truly say I thought about you on that day. Out there on the beach alone, just you, the wind, the sea, and foam. But I didn't. Until we found you.
Jesus.
She never talked about him, but Mom told me once if I was a boy, they were going to name me Gus.
Whew, man. Okay, where next? I don't know. Oh, okay. I barely even saw that. Really? There's a climbing wall in the house?
My mom moved up to the loft after her brothers died.
Oh.
At the time, it was as far away as she could get.
Whoa. Game started lagging there. I think it's trying to load. Yeah.
She spent a summer building houses in Calcutta, where she met my dad, Sanjay. My mom moved to India a week after graduation and got a job teaching English. Louis was born a year later. When my dad died, I don't think Mom knew where else to go. I'm sure Edie was have her back. The house had to get a little bigger, but Edie was used to that. And for a while, things were good. Almost normal, but it didn't last. The beginning of the end was Milton's 10th birthday, when Edie gave him a castle.
Well, of course, this is sealed, so we gotta go around. Ooh, there's the door opening, I guess. Nice. Man, honestly, this would be a cool house to have if it was securely, structurally sound. Doesn't seem stable. This would be a badass house to have, though, for real.
Milton Finch in The Magic Paintbrush.
Okay. Oh, okay, I have to hold right trigger and then do this. Okay.
I was 4 when Milton disappeared.
Oh, we just disappeared. Damn. I was wondering what the hell the point of that one was. Okay, so do I just go back down now? Okay.
Mom spent months searching for my brother. Then she sealed the doors.
Yeah. Jeez. I guess I go back out the window then.
Whatever Milton had found in the house, Mom didn't want it getting out.
I see, that's clever, because you could have probably gone this way too. I wonder if you could
Mom
actually, like,
definitely
kind of
blamed
speed run
me,
this
but
game.
I think Lewis blamed himself. Graduated, he just spent more and more time in his room. Until Mom got him a job at the cannery.
Wait, so do I go this way? Oh, I guess I do. But yeah, I wonder if, and I mean, obviously you can speed on this game, you can speed on any game. But I wonder if there are just, like, entire sections you can just outright skip. Oh, wait, that was supposed to go up, crap. I accidentally pushed the thumbstick down, not up. Okay. Now we go in. This is a pretty cool room, and dude's got a hookah in here.
Lewis's room smelled very, very familiar. That part of him lived on.
Hmm.
Dear Mrs. Finch, as Lewis's psychiatrist, I can understand your desire for an explanation. As I see it, the trouble began in January, shortly after we convinced your son to seek treatment for substance abuse. Newly so believe Lewis first noticed the monotony of his daily life.
Ooh.
He kept working at the cannery. But he withdrew part of himself. In our sessions, I saw the same behavior. His mind began to wander. I asked him to describe it. He said he started small, imagining a labyrinth. He'd feel his way about. Then something moved. Bats. And toads. And things that have not names. He knew it was all in his head. But he took it very seriously.
That's pretty interesting.
I had hoped he'd find himself. But he found something more. I worried about him then. Daydreaming at the cannery, I spoke with his boss. But he said Lewis had become a model employee. Methodical, tireless, focused. Like a whole new Lewis. So I let him go on. I even encouraged him. It seemed very promising at first. He told me he'd made a new friend.
Oh. He's a dog.
On the edge of a city he named Lewis Topia. He built the city up slowly, brick by brick. Then he made musicians. And songs for them to play. He talked about starting a band. And he was always humming something. Every day his imagination grew stronger. He no longer spoke at the cannery. But his chopping was as reliable as ever. Then one day it struck him that all the cheering crowds, even the stones under his feet, were all in his imagination, so he could do whatever he wished. He held an election for mayor. And he won.
So they're this way now?
They begged him to stay,
Oh, yeah.
but his mind was already wandering. It became a game for him. He'd conquer a city, then immediately push on. New Louisville. St. Louis.
Missouri?
He started drifting away from our reality. Minneapolis, until one day he forgot to go home from the cannery. Even as his mother pleaded with him, part of Lewis kept sailing on. In Lewisburg, he heard rumors of
a beautiful prince or a handsome queen. Okay, I guess we'll go with the handsome queen.
The queen was on her own quest for sinister serpents. He followed the sound of her.
Let's go with the harp.
Silver harp. His chase led him to a golden palace east of the sun and west of the moon. Even then, his logic remained sound. He knew the world was all in his imagination. but he was so proud of having created it. In his own eyes, he'd become something greater than a king.
Oh, the loading again. Okay. I was literally holding left stick forward and just stopped moving for a second.
For someone who'd never known success in the real world, I think it was overwhelming. And then it struck him that the real Lewis was not the one chopping salmon, but the one climbing the steps of a golden palace. My imagination is as real as my body, he told me. It was hard to argue with him.
I guess there's a giant set of gates and just a big, a little door. Just giant freaking golden gates, and then there's a little teeny tiny door in it. Here's my locker, I guess.
He began
Nice.
to forget the world we know. I think it pained him to remember Lewis, the cannery worker. And to despise the man with a royal contempt.
He's not even actually chopping up the fish.
I still thought I could save him. Even after he said he was being crowned king over all the lands of wonder. The palace would be packed with his companions. Including the
You can technically walk forward or you can stop. Or you can technically not move and it'll just keep moving forward. Alright, Molly the cat. It's a gigantic Molly the cat. And now you gotta walk up to the conveyor belt.
His queen waited, holding his crown. There was only one thing left to do. Bend down.
Oh
his
lord.
head.
Oh lord.
And the rest I can see now. Mrs. Finch, your son was a kind man who will be missed by all of us who knew him.
Jesus Christ. Dude should have
My
beheaded
brother was really
himself.
cool. I wish you could have met him. On the way back from
Like I said, this
Lewis's
is not a
funeral,
happy game.
My mom told me to start packing. She waited until the day before we left to tell Edie.
Ah, the loading again.
I'm not sure if she wanted to make it easier or harder. I wish we'd stayed. But I understand why we left. My mom ended up leaving everything behind.
Yeah, and she apparently wrote a book too. She was apparently very religious as well.
What happened that night had been coming for a long time. Maybe it should have come sooner.
Edith. So this is, I guess, supposed to be her room.
But it had to
Our
end
Edith, anyway.
one way or another. All that's left now is to tell you about that last night. That whole last day, Edie just watched us pack and didn't say a word. Until supper, when she raised her glass and said,
"To our final night together, and all our final nights apart."
Grandma, you know what I said about alcohol. Some of your medications are very
Edith,
specific.
I left a present for you in the hallway. Why don't you go open it? The grown-ups have to argue now.
I'm sorry, you're right. We're all leaving tomorrow. Let's just enjoy our last...
I'm not leaving.
Edith, you're excused.
the power had been shut off that morning, but Edie always had plenty of candles. When my mom sealed the library, I don't think she knew about the other entrance. Or that Edie had a key to it.
That thing you're afraid of isn't going to end when you leave the house. Edith has a right to know these stories.
My children are dead because of your stories. I think it's best if Edith and I leave tonight. We'll have the nursing home send a van for you in the morning, okay?
Dear Edith, there's so many stories I wish I could tell you, but there's only time for one. This is about what happened on the night you were born. That night, the tide went way, way out. It was the first and last time I ever saw the old house aground. There'd been an earthquake out in the middle of the ocean. They called it the lowest tide in 1,000 years. God, it smelled awful. You know, I've seen that house every day of my life. But I never thought I'd go back to it. When the fog rolled in, I lost my way. I got turned around. I started seeing things.
Oh dear. Although I just jumped over nothing, so I assume that was a hallucination.
Things I'd forgotten had ever existed. But when I saw them, they felt like old friends. That night, a lot of things came back to me. Or maybe I came back to them.
No, looks like she made it.
Things I can't explain, but that I need you to try and...
Edith, what are you doing in here?
It's mine!
Edith!
Mom, you're gonna rip it! Let go! I kicked and screamed, but Mom dragged me to the car. I never saw Great-Grandma Edie again. The next morning, the van came to pick her up, but she was already gone. After that, we moved around a lot.
This was always kind of a fun thing to do as a kid.
We both tried to make the best of it. A few years went by. My mom didn't like to talk about it. But she started getting sick a lot. The rest happened pretty quickly. She got better for a while, and then she didn't. And then I was alone. The last Finch left alive. Until I found out about you. I'm still not sure what to tell you about all this. If we lived forever, maybe we'd have time to understand things. But as it is, I think the best we can do is try to open our eyes. And appreciate how strange and brief all of this is. This journal was supposed to be for you. But now I hope you'll never see it. I just want to meet you and tell you all these stories myself. But I guess if you're reading this now, things didn't work out that way. This is where your story begins. I'm sorry I won't be there to see it. It's a lot to ask, but I don't want you to be sad that I'm gone. I want you to be amazed that any of us ever had a chance to be here at all. Good luck.
Jesus. Yeah, like I said, this is not a happy game. But it's still a really good game. And again, it's more of a, like right there, it doesn't even say a game by Giant Sparrow, it says story. For Shirley Dallas, 1940 to 2013. Oh. Ian Dallas, creative director. But yeah, so these are like all pictures of the people who were behind the game. I guess when they were kids. Yeah, this is just a kind of depressing game, but it's... I mean, it does kind of... I like to think it has a good message of, like... Because they've made it out to be, like, this whole curse, and it's like... Yeah, they had a lot of tragedy, but... When you think about it, all of our... Like, everybody's family line kind of is like this, where we all have family members who have died in tragic ways and others who died not so tragically, like they lived to be pretty old. And they all lived different lives up until the time that they died. Some of them didn't live very long, others lived for a very long time. But the thing is, we all die. It's one of the only things that are certain in life. And I like to think that it just... Like the game's kind of trying to tell you that the important thing is to just kind of live your life in the best way possible. To... Sorry, I think I've had to word this. Live the life the way that you want to live it. Live the life you want to live, however you want to live it. Don't let anybody else tell you how to live your life. I should also mention that on top of that, don't let trying to think how to word this. Don't let people tell you what to do, but don't ignore their advice either. Like, if they have a good point about something, don't just outright ignore it. Like, if you can think about what they've said and you agree with it, then don't ignore it, you know? Because if you ignore it, and it's actually good advice that you do genuinely agree with, you may end up somewhere in life you don't want to be. And I mean, like, yeah, I mean, no matter what, you're going to probably end up somewhere you don't want to be. But as long as you work hard at what you want, and you have the future ahead, you're looking at the future as well as your present, and doing your best to leave the past behind you, then you end up in the best place you could possibly be. And I mean, I don't outright forget your past, of course. Like, there's still something you should always remember about your past. There are some things that you probably don't want to remember that you're kind of forced to. But that's just how it is sometimes. Like, you may have some kind of trauma from the past that happens to affect you really badly. The end. But, maybe you might have some kind of trauma that you shouldn't really forget. The replay story option is now available. Select Edith to play from the beginning. Oh, well, that's kind of cool. But yeah, so yeah, the point is, don't just forget outright what happened in your past, because otherwise then you do kind of end up, like, you don't want to forget it because otherwise you end up making the mistakes that you made in the past, but you also don't want to focus on it because then you'll never be able to move forward. So you have to kind of find that balance of not forgetting, but forgetting at the same time. I don't know if that's the best way to word it, but that's the best way I can think of. Like, remember where you came from, but don't let that define you. Live your life the way you want to live, because you could end up like Gregory. You live for about a year, maybe less, maybe a little more. Or you could end up like Edie, living to be almost 100. You know? You could end up like Lewis, who lived to be what looks like maybe in his 30s. Or you could live to be Edith and only live for about 17 years. 17, 18 years, something like that. But just remember to live the life you want to live, and don't let anyone else control your life. Let people help guide you in life, but don't let them control you. That's what I wanted to try to say. Like, if people are trying to guide you, that's one thing, but if they're trying to outright control you, don't let them do that. Because, like, for me even, there are times where I feel like I'm being an asshole because I try to help I try to help some of my friends through their life problems and try to get them on a better path, but they sometimes get angry with me for trying to help because they think I'm being controlling, and it's not that I want to be controlling, it's that I don't want to see them go down a bad path in life. And I mean, I've seen where a lot of things can lead people. Like my mom, for example, you know, she was sexually abused when she was young, but then she also had a kid when she was 16. She got pregnant at 15, but she had that kid when she was 16. And she then had 7 kids total between the ages of like between the ages of 16 and I want to say like her early to mid 30s. She was so good for me and my younger sibling, the last. But she did better. But she's been through a lot in her own life, and it's led to her kind of being a bit irritable a lot of the time, and her kids mostly don't like her anymore because they all kind of were raised poorly by their fathers. Well, the middle three were well. I'm trying to think about how to explain this. The first two she'd raised because the dad had left. But the middle three, they were mostly raised by their dad. My older sister, the middle one of those three, she was mostly she was kind of, I think she was probably about 50-50 between her dad and our mom. But the only kids that my mom has left that really tolerate her anymore are my older brother, sometimes me, because there are times where I can't stand her, but sometimes me, and then my younger sibling. And the rest of them just don't like her anymore because they've had so much crap they've gone through. And then, like, my dad, right? He was a drug user, he was a drinker, and when he was with my mom, he would physically attack her, he would verbally attack her. According to what my mom says anyway. I was never old enough to see any of this, because they split up when I was like 2. So I never really experienced any of it, ever, firsthand. I only know what they both had said. From what my mom had told me, he would hit her, and he would beat her. And, well, I mean, not really beat her. He would hit her like one time, but it was like violent enough where it was a beating. I think like one time he hit her so hard she threw over the couch. Another time, I think he had pushed her into the wall and like put a hole in it, or he punched a hole in the wall. I can't remember which one it was. But the point is, like, she was afraid of him for like the longest time. But after him getting custody of me, he seemed a bit more sympathetic. No, not really sympathetic. Like, I was able to be more sympathetic towards him because of the things that I then learned about his past. And they have both let their pasts kind of define their lives. Like, they both did. My dad did all up until the day he died. And the thing that made me really kind of realize how depressed he secretly was when I found out that there was only one Metallica song that he liked, because he wasn't a really big metalhead. But there was one Metallica song he liked, and that was The Unforgiven. And that is probably one of the most depressing songs I've ever heard in hindsight, because it's about a man who has grown up being beaten down and broken down his whole life. And then, like, close to the end of the song, it starts talking about how, like, because of how his life had gone, he no longer really cares about anything. He just wants it all to end. And I mean, like, it's just like the one song that he liked in a genre he didn't seem to really care about at all, and it's that one. Okay, like here. Okay, so like the final verse of the song is, "They dedicate their lives to running all of his. He tries to please them all, this bitter man he is. Throughout his life the same, he's battled constantly. This fight he cannot win. A tired man they see no longer cares. The old man then prepares to die regretfully. That old man here is me." And he was like really into listening to that song as in the final years of his life, and it's like, I think he secretly kind of knew that he wasn't living much longer. I mean, it's not like he had any kind of like serious illness. He died of heart failure. But it was from like a combination of things, like blood clots in his legs, being overweight, still smoking so his lungs were weak. He went into the hospital with pneumonia, and then he had to have surgery because of a bowel blockage. And before he could get surgery, he passed away that weekend. And just thinking back on that, like, it seemed he regretted like his entire life. I mean, and like when I would live with him, he would just complain about always being in pain, never being able to do the things he used to do, not being able to do the things he used to do with his own kids. And it's just, the mistakes he made in his past ruined his future. Like, he was never able to do the things he wanted to do with his own children because he had messed up his body so much, he messed up his mind so much. And like, he wasn't a good person, but he wasn't terrible either. It's hard. It's a very fine line with him, because yes, he did some very terrible things, especially to my mom, according to what she said. But his father wasn't any better. His mom wasn't any better. And it's just, yeah. So I know what your past and the choices you make in the present can do to your future. And that's why I try to help people and guide them down a better path, because I don't want to see people end up the same way that my parents did. That's why I seek help for myself, so I don't go down that same path. That's why I don't go anywhere near drugs that are harder than the marijuana. That's why I don't drink a whole lot. I will still occasionally drink, obviously, as you've seen, because I've done live streams where I get drunk, and I post them on the YouTube. But I try not to do it too often, because both of my parents were addicts. Their parents were addicts. So I don't want to have an actual addiction to the alcohol. Thankfully, weed isn't like that. It's not like it's an actual addiction. It's more when I have anxiety, or when I'm feeling, when I have a lot of pain, I'll smoke a little bit to either relieve the pain or relieve the anxiety. But I don't just smoke to smoke. Granted, I've been smoking a lot lately because I've just been anxious a lot of the time. But it's not like I want to do it all the time. I don't like being high all the time. I mean, it's fun sometimes, but it's not... I don't like being high all the time, because then I can't do anything. And it's hard to try to figure out when the time to smoke weed is and when the time is to just leave it alone. Because I feel like maybe if I don't smoke the weed, then I'll be fine. But then I'm like, oh, well, but now if I do smoke it, then I'm messing up my brain because I am still under the age of 25, so my brain isn't done developing. But my mom has been telling me that she's noticed that I seem to be a bit slower in my speech, or I'm a bit slower in the head ever since I started smoking. And it's like, now I'm trying to kind of cut back on it because of that. But I don't know, it's like I don't really have much of an option, because any medicine that my doctors have thrown at me in the past don't work. They don't work. I've been on so many different medications, it's insane. And none of them have worked. I was on Xanax. And, I mean, granted, my doctor started me at the lowest frickin' dose for Xanax. And then got mad at me for taking 3 when he had prescribed me 2. You know, he got mad at, well, I don't know if he got mad, but he really upset that I had taken 1 over the recommended dosage that he had said. So he took me off the Xanax because he was like, oh, well, he's just taking more than he should be, so therefore he's addicted to it, even though he doesn't have any kind of past history of abusing his medication. But anyway, the Xanax wasn't even working. So it's, yeah, but my point in all this is, don't let your past define you, but don't forget your past. Don't let your become your future. That's what I'm trying to get at. Don't let what happened to you become you. Don't let it become your future. Don't let it become your children if you ever end up having kids. Don't let it enter your relationships. I mean, yes, if you're dealing with it, tell your partner about it and let them help you if they're willing. But don't let that abuse you. You know, don't let, I mean, again, just to repeat myself for the umpteenth time, don't let your past become you. Because you will not have a if you do. Unless you happen to have a really good past. If you had a really good childhood, if you had a really good set of teenage years, if you had a good early adulthood, if you had a good life so far, then yeah, I guess you could go ahead and, you know, let your past become you. But if you have so much trauma in your past, whether it's in your childhood, or in your teens, or in your early adulthood, don't let that become you. I apologize for that. My controller went idle because I've clearly been talking for 15 minutes straight without touching my controller. But yeah, I gotta stop this here now, though. I gotta stop rambling because we're already almost at an hour, and most of that's just been me talking. Well, not most of it, but a lot of it. A big chunk of it has just been me talking. But yeah, just remember what I if you actually are watching this somewhere down the road. Because so far, no, I don't think there's been anybody who's watched the entire video. I mean, I don't know, all I ever see on the analytics is average watch time. I never see the longest watch time. So it doesn't show that, so I have no idea if anybody's watched all the way through on anything. But if you've made it the entire little spiel, this little lecture, this talk, then I appreciate you sticking around for that. And I hope you guys enjoyed this series. I actually expected this to be about 3 parts, but I guess I made both of them long enough to where I ended up finishing it in 2. But yeah, like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed this. If those of you on YouTube, leave a like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and be sure to ring the bell to be notified of when I upload a new video. Those of you on Twitch, just make sure you follow me and catch the streams when I go live. Like I said, if there's any glitching or lagging or jumping like that, like seems out of place, then I apologize. Hopefully that'll get fixed once I move. It's not gonna happen until after I move. It's just not, because I don't have any other options for internet here. But anyway, I'll see you guys in the next video.